Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of the Alloutdoor1 Survival and Bushcraft series. This is part 3. Today's episode is going to be about wild foods, survival foods, wild edibles. Also in the meantime, I'm going to be making my own bread, campfire bread. I've got my little bread cooking kit here. I'll show you that in just a second. Okay, let's start off with my bread making kit. It's just simply a sealable sandwich bag. Inside we have a square of aluminium foil, a small packet of salt inside an aluminium foil, and finally we have some plain white flour, the good stuff. Now, to make the bread, all you have to do is simply mix a bit of the salt in with the flour. You can add other seasonings such as sugar or cinnamon to give it different flavour. So there we have our salt. You know, you could have just pre-mixed this, but I kept it separate. And now we simply take the salt, add a good pinch of it to our flour. So we have our salt and our flour. Just give them a little mix. And then very simply add some water. You don't need a lot of water. Just enough to basically stick everything together. Obviously, using your hand makes this a lot easier. Anyway, with regards to survival foods and wild edibles, obviously in most survival situations your main priority will be first aid, shelter, water. Food, you know, you can survive a long time without food, several weeks. Yeah, but in a situation where you do need to find some food, this video is basically a discussion about what are your best options in a survival situation to find food. Me personally, I would say that this depends greatly on your geographical location, where you are in the world, and what the climate is, etc. Obviously, it's going to be different everywhere. So, in terms of what's the best type of food in a survival situation, now obviously I'm thinking of a long-term survival situation, or you know, a situation where you're stranded out in the wild somewhere and you have to find food or face starvation pretty much. Now with survival food, it's always important to bear in mind how much energy you're gaining from it, as opposed compared to how much energy you've spent obtaining the food in the first place. Now, a good source of protein, fat and energy is obviously animal meat, or even fish or birds. You know, basically a creature. It may not necessarily be the easiest to catch, but if it's a sizable animal, then, you know, one kill can potentially provide you with several days, if not a couple of weeks, of food. Many people would argue that hunting isn't a very energy efficient means of obtaining food. Well, I kind of disagree on that, because I don't know, if you're foraging, for example, and forageable food isn't immediately obvious, then number one, you have to exert a lot of energy locating the food in the first place. Now, after meats and fish, your next best source of energy will probably be the carbohydrate group, such as nuts, tubers, you know, things along those lines. With nuts, obviously, they can be relatively easily obtained. You can, you know, just simply pick them out of the tree, or find them on the ground and proceed with cracking them open. Now, some nuts are obviously going to be a lot harder to crack open, so, you know, again, you're expending energy. As with tubers, roots and tubers, you know, it's also, apart from having to locate them in the first place, then you have to process them, obviously, which also requires more energy. You probably have to clean them, possibly peel them, chop them, boil them. Not many can be eaten raw. So yeah, carbohydrates and proteins are probably your best bet in a survival situation. You know, many of the other wild edibles, herbs, leaves, salads, various seed heads and pine kernels that you can make teas, etc. out of. You know, they might provide you with a boost of vitamin C or other vitamins and minerals. So, you know, they shouldn't be immediately dismissed, but as far as sustaining you, I don't think they're going to do much unless, you know, they're available in huge abundance, and also they're relatively easy to collect and process. You know, especially with, back to hunting now, especially with hunting, it's always a difficult one, unless you have a firearm of some type, or you know, a bow and arrow. It's very hard to secure game, and unless you're pretty good with a bow and arrow, it's definitely going to be difficult for you. So obviously your other alternative would be trapping. Now obviously traps do require a bit of patience and hard work, so obviously you're expending energy there. But the good thing about many traps is that they're reusable, so once you've gone to the effort of building them the first time, you won't have to repeat the process every time. Whereas, for example, collecting roots or tubers, you'd have to walk to the location and find the plant, dig it up, and you'd have to keep doing that in a new location every time, unless again it's available in an abundant supply. In my opinion, the best survival food is always going to be meat. You know, you'd have to eat, you know, compare for yourself, for example, you know, the feeling of fullness and satisfaction you get after eating a steak, as compared to, I don't know, eating a large green leaf salad. Obviously you've got a lot more energy. in a source such as meat. So yeah, I'd just be interested to know what other people think about this. You know, give me some suggestions as what you think is good survival food. What you think is the best, what you would do basically. Okay, let's say in your country, wherever you are, if you're in the wilds, what would be your best option for survival food? You know, considering you haven't brought anything with you, you're literally out in the middle of nowhere with no food, some tools, and yeah, I'd just be interested to know what people would go for immediately. Me personally, as soon as I kind of established a shelter and secured a water source, and if there was no chance of rescue, or no immediate chance anyway, nothing that's clear, then I'd proceed to setting up traps. And the good thing about trapping is, as you move from location to location, you'd also be able to pick up any wild edibles that you find on the way. You know, they can be a good accompaniment to the meat, and also, you know, just provide a bit more of a balanced diet, provide you with some more minerals and a bit more nutrition that you need. I'm sure most bushcrafters and survivalists in England anyway will know this one, rose hip. These pod heads can be topped and tailed and split in half and then boiled up to make either a tea which is high in vitamin C, and these are a good source of vitamin C in the winter. As I said, high in vitamin C, and can also be made into a syrup to preserve them for longer lengths of time. These generally are quite low growing bushes. You'll see them on woodland verges and places like this. Right guys, just going to finish up with my bread preparation. And what I'm literally going to do is take the flour mixture and put it inside here. Right, so now I'm just going to flatten this out. Obviously the thinner you make this, the quicker it cooks. This would be a luxury in a survival situation indeed. Lots of refined carbohydrate energy here. So now I'm simply going to wrap this up. And that's our parcel ready for baking. So yeah, we'll get back to the bread baking in a minute, or bannock, I believe it's called. In the meantime, I'd like to talk a little bit about a certain survival food, and also the tree of death. Yes, the tree of as it's known, it's the yew tree. It looks something along these lines. It's an evergreen with pine needles. The reason this tree is called the tree of death is that it's highly poisonous. The bark is poisonous, the needles are poisonous, the roots are poisonous. in fact, almost every part of this tree is highly toxic. So, for example, if you're handling it with bare hands, be sure to wash your hands afterwards. If you're sawing the wood, then be sure not to inhale any of the dust particles, any of the sawdust. Similarly, if you're thinking about making any kind of eating utensil out of it, don't. Although having said that, there is one part of the tree that is edible, and that is the fruit of the red berry that I just showed you. If you take out the seeds, because the seeds are actually highly poisonous as well, so remove the seeds, but the fruit is edible. It doesn't have much of a taste. Funnily enough, it tastes a bit like aloe vera and prickly pear cactus, the fruit, or the leaves even, the ears. If you want to see some more about the prickly pear cactus as a wild edible, then please see my other wild edibles video. Yeah, so anyway, as I was saying, the fruit is very edible, is completely edible, won't do you any harm. As I said, just be careful to remove the seeds. Yeah, this fruit is also favoured by deer, so when the fruit is in season, or once it's ripe and it starts falling to the ground, then look around and you'll be able to find deer in that location, if there are any in that area at all. So as I said, the reason it's called the tree of death is because it's very toxic. Having said that, however, this is also a very useful tree, and it has long been of importance to many indigenous peoples. Now, the reason this is such a useful tree is that it's very slow growing and produces a very hard, tough timber. These trees can grow up to, hundreds of years old. But as I said, the timber's very tough. So, just another example of a yew over here. Well, we have several around in this area. Yeah, the wood is extremely tough and extremely flexible, and it was used for tool making, or has been used for tool making for many hundreds of years. And in fact, the longbow was traditionally made from yew, and that's what made it such a deadly weapon, because of its strength and subtlety. It flexes a lot and is very strong, so you were able to put a lot of draw weight behind it. So guys and girls, I'll read you a few facts about the common yew tree. The Latin name is Taxus baccata. Now I'm reading from this book here. It's Collins Gems Trees. It's just a good field guide. So what it says about the yew here is: yew is a very long-lived tree, up to 2,000 years. So my mistake, I said several hundred years before. It's actually up to 2,000 years, and makes a massive but equally squat tree with dark green, evergreen, flattened needles which are poisonous to cattle. Yew is widespread in Central Europe, extending to Norway, Western Scotland and Ireland. In England it is characteristically found on the chalk downs in the south, or on limestone hills in the north and west. Irish yew, which is a narrow form of yew, or golden forms, are often planted in gardens, and yew trees are a familiar sight in churchyards, where the older specimens may predate the foundations of the church, as yew had important pre-Christian religious significance. And that's what I mentioned earlier about being the tree of death, etc. And just as the light is fading, I'll just go into one more tree quickly. This is the sweet hazel, the hazelnut tree. Latin name Corylus avellana. The leaves look like this. slight sheen to them, and they've got the teeth on the edge there. Let me try and get close up. There we go, just so you know what that looks like. And obviously the bark looks like this. The nuts are easily identifiable and very tasty. Good source of carbohydrates and nut proteins. Definitely a good survival food. I mean, you know, you eat a couple of handfuls of these and you feel full up. Now, most people will be familiar with hazelnuts. You know, they look like this. This one's already been got at by a squirrel, unfortunately, leaving nothing for me. Yeah, the hazel is generally quite a short tree, and according to the Collins Gem Trees Guide, it's not actually a tree, technically speaking. I'll just read the information on that to you now. Hazel is not strictly a tree if we adhere to the requirements for a single trunk, for it almost invariably produces a dense mass of long arching branches. If left uncut, however, it is capable of producing a trunk and of reaching 8 to 10 meters in height. It is easily recognized at all times of year. In winter, by its growth form, its almost yellowish brown twigs, and its conspicuous green rounded buds and immature catkins. Hazel is a very widely distributed shrub in Europe, found all over the British Isles and absent only from the mountains of Scandinavia. In Britain it forms a characteristic shrub layer in oak woods, especially where coppiced to produce the long new twigs for hurdles, wattles, basketry and the like, but it's quite capable of reaching the canopy where the trees are poorly grown. In the extreme west of Britain, especially on sea cliffs, hazel forms pure stands, usually shrubby and wind cut. So that's a little bit about the hazel. So yes, guys and girls, it's been a long day. I've had a lot of projects on the go, including filming. I've also made a fireboard and drill piece, which I shall be demonstrating at some point. I have made a couple of these before. The first time I made one, it worked well. The second time I made one, it didn't work at all for some reason. I think I chose poorly when it came to the woods. This is yew. Because the trees are very old in this area, I don't like to chop off any branches or damage the trees in any way, so this I was lucky to come across a large piece of downed yew, but I thought it would make a really nice fire set. Yeah, I'll demonstrate that another time, as I said. In the meantime, it's almost dinner time, and therefore I'll be making the baking the bread in just a second. I'm just going to light the fire. Yeah, notice I've got it in this Swedish torch arrangement. I have, in my previous episode of the survival series, of my survival series, I demonstrate how to make this. Works as a great fire. I built this one yesterday, and literally when you fill up the inner well with fuel, set fire to it, you know, that's definitely enough to cook on, and then I simply extinguished it with water before I went to bed. And obviously I've just refilled the inner well with lots of bark and small twigs again, and we'll get it going again. Notice this time I've obviously isolated it from the ground with a silver baking tray, which is a very lightweight solution to the problem. But you know, you don't want to cause any kind of underground root fires or anything like this, although unlikely in this area due to the nature of the soil here and the fact that it's been really wet recently. There's very little danger of it, but you know, I don't want to be responsible for a forest fire under any circumstances. Yeah, so I'll just get this lit and we'll see how the bread goes. and finally we have ignition. So that seems to have taken nicely now. It's producing a lot of heat and it's very contained. Yeah, I thought I'd also take this opportunity to show off my UCL mini candle lantern, so I'll just go ahead and light that now. Yep, so first up I'm just going to boil some water, my trusty old Crusader cup, just by placing it on top. Now a good little tip for you bushcrafters and survivalists out there, if you're trying to save fuel, then what I do basically is the first mug I boil, the first lot of water I boil, I just put it into my, what's it called now? God, I'm at a loss for words. Flask, that's it. Yeah, so as I said, so the first lot of water that I boil from any fire will go into my flask, so I don't have to, you know, use any fuel later on if I want a hot drink, and you know that keeps it relatively hot for about 8 hours. So that's a good little tip there. And then obviously once I've pulled that out, then I start another one up for use immediately. Right guys and girls, so the bannock is cooking away here. I've just placed it by the side of the fire. This area is still very hot, so hopefully that should be done. I'm assuming it will take about 20 minutes to half an hour, turning it around a few times so it cooks evenly. Right guys and girls, it's been about 45 minutes, it's now dark as you can see, and I think this should be ready by now. Let's see what we have here. Well, doesn't look too bad, but the proof of, they say, is in the pudding, so I'm going to go ahead. That's actually not too bad at all. Nice. Well, I'll leave you for today on that note, and I'll get back to you tomorrow. Take care. Hi guys and girls, it's the next day now. Didn't have much of a good night's sleep for some reason, kept waking up. Probably some deer going for a shit near my tent, no doubt. Or something just disturbing me in my sleep. But anyway, been to collect some water today. Yeah, the walk was about 1.5 miles each direction. Only had half a litre left in the morning, so yeah, I had to go and filter some water. There are quite a few sort of, I think they're man-made ponds around here. I believe it's to help support the deer population. But here we go. This is the tree I was looking for. This is the next tree I want to talk about, and this is the silver birch, also known as the tree of life. So here's what the guide has to say about the tree of life. Latin name Betula pendula, is an elegant, fast-growing tree, rarely surviving more than 100 years, found through almost all of Europe and distinguished by its drooping twigs, hanging down from stiffly held main branches. Capable of reaching 30 meters, though rarely seen above 20 meters. Silver birch starts out as a neat conical tree. Silver birch is a common and characteristic tree of dry, sandy and peaty soils, often seen colonizing heathermoor. The bark is pinkish brown in younger trees and later on white and scaly with conspicuous black patches. I'll just get a bit closer here so you can have a look. Yep, so that's what it looks like. Now in my opinion this is a survival plant which it makes sense to know about. You know, it's very widespread, so, and also it's very easy to identify. I'll get a close up on some leaves. As you can see, the leaves are quite small, about 4 centimeters across, lengthwise, sorry, and they have very small teeth with slightly bigger, more pronounced teeth going up and down them as well. The underside is slightly more silvery. The reason it's a good tree to know with regards to bushcrafting and survival is that it's a medicinal plant, and it's also a very useful tree, and also it can provide you with nourishment. Although not common in it to do so in England, across much of Europe and even Asia, the sap from the birch bark tree is considered a delicacy and retails for ridiculous amounts of money, like 30-40 pounds sterling for a litre in some countries. Although I find that quite funny, because where I've had it in Eastern Europe, it sells for about 3 or 4 pounds a litre. So I guess there's just a huge demand for it in certain Asian countries, Japan for example. The way this sap is obtained is literally you just drill a hole about so big, or even so big, into the tree, depending on how big it is, and then you run a tube into that hole, which is the same diameter obviously, so you're not getting any of the sap leaking out from around, and then you just literally feed it into some kind of container and just let that sit there for a day or so. A tree of this size, which is quite a large one I'd say, will probably yield about 20 to 30 litres of birch sap per day. Even a small one, such as those over there in the background, with a diameter of approximately 15-20 centimeters or so, even they will yield about 4 to 5 litres a day of sap. Now this sap, not only will it hydrate you, so obviously it's a form of water, of obtaining water, but it also contains carbohydrates, sugars, amino acids and proteins, and even some minerals. So it's a very, very nutritious substance, and hence why it's valued throughout the world so greatly. And also its uses as a medicinal plant are also being explored more and more nowadays. I believe there are about 4 or 5 drugs in development which are basically derived from various parts of this tree. Now as far as medicinal uses, basically you can extract the tar from the wood by a process of baking, basically, where you bake it in an airtight container with a hole at the bottom, and the hole leads to another can or collecting chamber, and then you apply a fire to the top of the whole pot. So this would have to be buried. That's the method I've seen. Yeah, and literally you set a fire on top of it, leave it for 12 hours or so, and then come back to it the next day, and you'll have collected some pitch, a tarry substance, which is extracted from the wood through that process. Now this pitch has medicinal properties to it. It works as a disinfectant, helps to heal wounds, etc. And also has a lot of physical applications, in as much as that it can help to waterproof things, glue things together, and anywhere, anything that where you'd use a glue, you can use this pitch, and it's very strong. I believe that the bark is edible. I'll double check that. I'm not 100%. I'm not sure how to go about it. Maybe it's like once you peel away the top layer of bark, the inner bark is edible. I've heard. I'll have to do a bit of research on that when I get back home, and I'll be sure to add it in some footnotes at the bottom now. So yes, that's the silver birch. Hi guys and girls, here's another wild edible for you. Obviously everyone will be aware of the blackberry, but did you know that the actual leaves are also edible? It's a bit late in the season for these ones, and any leaves that are looking like this you definitely want to avoid, but the fresher shoots, the younger shoots should I say, are edible and can be eaten raw or cooked. Here's another wild edible for you guys. This is the elderberry. The fruit can be eaten, but it's best to make it into some kind of preserve, like a jam, or even elderflower cordial, which is the made from the flowers of this plant. That's earlier on in the season, but these berries can also be used. They're good in cakes, pies, like as a topping for an ice cream or something like this. So just thought I'd show you these ones as well. That's the leaf. These grow about up to about 10 meters in height, and produce fruit in August, September. And I think most people will be familiar with this kind of print. This is the horseshoe, obviously, quite very easy to identify. So obviously where there are horses, there are probably going to be people, especially around here. And over here we have a deer footprint. Right guys and girls, yeah, this visit's drawing to a close now. Just going to go and pack up the last bits of my camp and head out. I've got someone coming to pick me up in about an hour and a half, so I need to get going soon, because I've got about at least another hour's walk to get back to the vehicle. But yeah, it's been interesting. Hope I was able to teach someone something. Hope someone was able to learn something from this video, as I do with all my videos. Oh, hello. Let's see what we have here. I'm not sure what these ones are. Let's check the colour of the gills. White gills. So probably poisonous. I'm no expert, absolutely not when it comes to mushrooms. I know a couple of varieties. I was taught them by my grandparents and I can pretty much safely identify them, but I wouldn't risk it otherwise. Yep, so as I said, this one's drawing to a close. Please also see my video called Tents versus Tarps. We're getting a little vote going regarding what's the best form of shelter for bushcraft. Please see that video for more information. Yeah, so I think it's been quite a productive trip. As I said, just going to pack up now. That's all you're getting from me this time. I'm dirty and no doubt smelly, and looking forward to a good bath and shower when I get home. Bath and shower, bath and bed even. But this is Alloutdoor1, signing out for now. Take care, bye bye.
No.